You look so handsome, my friend.
Thanks.
It says recording, so I'm not going to play the theme song. I'll add that in later. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Tea Time with T-Cross. I feel like I keep switching up how it looks on YouTube. First I was at my girlfriend's place, then I'm in my parents' place, and I'm back at my girlfriend's place, and I'm all over the place, back at my parents' place, but we got a split screen because I have this handsome guest with me from the Fighting With Myself podcast. Not anymore, kind of, maybe?
Tentatively.
Tentatively, okay. And, but also definitely Breaking the Fourth Wall, your theater podcast.
Yes, sir. And I am coming back to MMA soon. I'm gonna keep the Fighting With Myself feed. I'm gonna do that same podcast feed, but I'm gonna change the name depending upon what I decide to do with the show.
Yeah. So, we had discussed weeks ago about doing a year-end review, 2020 year-end review. So we usually talk MMA, just when when respect on each other's shows. But just in our personal lives, we talk a bunch of shit. So just 2020 in review. How would you describe this year for you?
You know what? I was thinking about this earlier today. Well, actually, throughout the course of since the new year started, because 2020 in the course of years was a pretty terrible year. It was a pretty shit year. And when everything happened, at the start of the year when the coronavirus stuff started, and any sane person knew it was fucking serious, it was mass panic. I was freaking out. I was begging my job to close. They finally did, just because the government closed. And then just looking back on it, it actually was a pretty damn good year. A lot of great things happened to me. First off, the lockdown was great. I know it was kind of a hard time for people, and I'm not I know that's kind of shitty to say when some people weren't doing that well, but for me, I'm a homebody anyway, and my wife and I, it was so nice. Got to catch up on all the shows we missed over the years, binge Lucifer, I binge Community, Normal People, just all these great shows that I had missed out on. And then as far as professionally, creatively, whatever, I had my favorite MMA writer on my podcast, Fernando Purchas, and I was
awesome.
fucking A, dude, this awesome stuff has happened to me in 2020. And I finally got the theater podcast off the ground, which we've been trying to do for a long time. So, yeah, there's a lot of bad that happened in 2020. And like I said, while it was happening, I was man, fuck this year. Cause dude, I was thinking about it too, the amount of celebrity deaths, like Chadwick Boseman and stuff like that, just hit so hard. When everything else is going on and then you have shit like that happening, it's wild. But looking back, I've had much worse years. I mean, I had cancer in 2017. I had cancer in 2018/2019. 2020 wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
All things considered.
So that's good to hear. I'm glad. I'm quite the opposite. I had a pretty dog shit year from beginning to end. Ironically, the only good thing that happened to me this year was finances. I did,
Nice.
quit my shit job that I hated, and I've made more money than I've ever made in my entire life. It's not, a shitload by any means, because I've never really had a great paying job, but it's still the most money I've ever made, so that's cool. But I didn't know your cancer was so recent. I knew that you had it twice and survived it twice, but I didn't know it was that recently. Holy shit.
Yeah, dude. You probably started listening to my show after I talked about it, because so the first time I got it was in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And
what kind
that's actually testicular cancer.
Okay.
And so that was kind of actually because that was when I was still in LA, when I was in California, and overcoming it, getting my surgery and everything, that kind of was a catalyst for me wanting to move to New Jersey. It was kind of one of those lease on life things. And I was just you know what? I want to marry my girlfriend. She's not my wife. And I was we need to be on the East Coast with her family. So I was let's move in with your family. I convinced her. And then I kind of foolishly thought it was gone, because after the first surgery, they were like, well, there's an 86% chance that we got everything, or 87, something like that. And I was like, that's pretty good. And
That is
so
pretty.
I was like pretty hardcore on my diet for like a couple months. And then I sort of got complacent. And then I was like, well, whatever. And then December of 2018 was when I finally got an appointment with the doctor, got a scan where they were like, no, man, it's back. It's still there. And then like, that was actually like starting my podcast, Fighting with Myself, was a lot of the thing, like one of the main things that helped me like mentally and emotionally to like get over it, because then I had my surgery in May and chemo in August of that year. So I just like having that community, having a platform to talk about everything was like so helpful for me to like make it through. And yeah, it feels like so long ago, because so much just happened. Like literally, I had the chemo, and then a day after that, I interviewed for my job that I have currently. And then I went on my honeymoon. And as soon as I came back from my honeymoon, started the new job. So yeah, I feel like a lot has happened, but it was kind of recent.
Wow, that's wild. Well, I'm glad you're okay now.
Thank you.
All good. Have you gotten more scans? Like it's definitely still gone and
Yep. I had my yearly follow up, and they said it was all good.
that's good, man. I'm really happy to hear that. And yeah, you mentioned Chadwick Boseman. That was so hard. That was the hardest one for me because I spent so much time watching him on screen. You know, he was a later addition to the Marvel universe, but even that he was still on screen a lot. You know, the four Avengers movies, the Black Panther, the Civil War. There was 6, 7. I don't know, I just counted whatever 6 or 7 movies that he was in, and I was so ingrained in that universe that I felt
Yeah.
like I knew the fucking guy. It's kind of like with podcasts, like if something were to happen to Tom Segura or Joe Rogan, like I've spent so many hours of my life listening to them, I feel like I know them. And when something were to happen, like I felt it. It was really weird. Somebody that I don't personally know passing away, like really affected me.
Oh, absolutely. I was thinking about this recently. The like 4-year anniversary of Carrie Fisher's passing
Yeah, I saw you
just
post about
happened. And I was like, I remember exactly where I was when I heard that. And that's kind of what it was with Chadwick. I don't remember exactly where I was, but I just remember this overwhelming sadness that I had, and that like everyone I knew had, who's like Marvel fans. And it's like you said, he wasn't in a lot of movies, but the time he was so meaningful, and it's more than people think. Like I was listening to a podcast that I want to plug real quick called Verbal Diorama. She does amazing movie reviews, and she did like the episode on Black Panther was amazing, but she also did one on Captain America: Civil War, and that was the first movie that he was in, and he was an integral part of the plot point. Like the Sokovia Accords, and like the bomb that killed his father, like that was his whole story. So it was all interwoven from the beginning, with like the Russo brothers doing everything. So he was so important to so many people. I think during lockdown is when I watched one of his last movies that released before he passed, was this movie called Seven Bridges, or no, 21 Bridges, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the bridges in Manhattan or whatever.
Yeah.
Really good performance, really good acting, and I just felt like he had so many more stories to tell.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking. And then obviously, the whole Black Lives Matter thing that happened this year, that was a huge story, huge like historical shit was going down and still is. That was a huge part. And I think part of what set that off was the lockdown, because the only thing people could really do, because we weren't allowed to go places and entertain ourselves, was stay at home and watch the news or scroll through Facebook. And I think everybody was so fed up with the lockdowns that is part of the reason that shit escalated so high.
Hell yeah. And I meant to mention that in my looking back as well, because that was one of the things for me too. Like when it comes to like racial injustice and things like that, I would always feel like it wasn't my fight. I would always feel like, oh, I'm an ally, I'm here, but I don't want to be like part of the conversation, feel like I'm taking up space. And then when it happened, and literally like everyone who wasn't a piece of shit was just like doing something about it, and I was just like, fuck yeah, dude. And it's so apropos with what you just said, because if you go on, I mean, I don't know if people have posted more, whoever runs the account, but I remember going on Chadwick's Instagram account right after he passed, and one of his last posts was like a letter to Hollywood from him and the black community in Hollywood saying you need to change, like things are terrible. And now I feel like he was kind of like spearheading that movement in a way, and it kind of took a hit. But the when I was talking about earlier about having Fernando on my show, that was like the day after the George Floyd passing or
Oh, really?
murder or execution or whatever. And one of my buddies that would send in questions to the show, he's in Minnesota where it happened. I don't know right where, but um, I remember just being like overwhelmed and not knowing how to process anything. And then I just had this conversation with Fernando that I already planned. And then he had sent in a voice message saying he was at a protest. And I was just like, I gotta fucking do something. And then the
Yeah.
next episode, I did like 14 minutes and just like fucking.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you and I both like we've been just like fucking hammering this shit. And that, as much as it is terrible, the things that went on and are still going on, it's good that people are finally talking about it. It's good that the movement is happening, and that is a somewhat positive note about 2020. I agree.
Yeah, I think something that could something positive that could come out of all that negativity was just the ability that people are talking about it, whether it's whether you want to call it arguing or screaming or disagreeing, the conversation is happening.
Yeah.
And most of them are arguments and screaming, but the fact that it's happening, I think, is a good direction for the future.
Hell yeah.
So before we move on to more of 2020, I just want to talk about the week I had, because you had mentioned when we spoke earlier today about how you felt super depressed this morning, and then you left work, and then you're like, bam, I'm so fucking excited. I can't wait to record tonight. I was super depressed this morning as well. Still am. I had a really really shit week. So my friend passed away the other day. My buddy
Oh my
Greg.
god.
He was a guy that he used to come visit me at college all the time. We used to go to Philly and go to all these, the raves and stuff. He came to all my fights. He was always so loud to the point that if you watched my first, I think it was my first fight, he's so fucking loud that people are like asking him to shut up. Like was so loud and supportive for me. So I hadn't spoken to him in a few months, but I was just so fucking sad about hearing about his passing yesterday. It was really, really awful. So I just wanted to throw that out there and throw a rest in peace to my buddy Greg. And then my other friend, I don't want to mention his name, put his business too far out there, but my other friend, his father passed away. I just found that out. So I found that out the same day as my buddy Greg. And then somebody canceled my health insurance for 2021. I get health insurance through the marketplace because Uber doesn't give insurance to people, so I get it through the marketplace, and I got it through the marketplace last year, and I had planned to just keep the same coverage for this year. And today, what's today, the 5th?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I plan to have my insurance payments come out on the 1st of every month. So the first happened, I think mathematically the first was like Friday or something. So it didn't come out on Friday. So then I'm like, all right, the weekend it usually doesn't come out. Monday it'll come out. Yesterday, the payment didn't come out. Today the payment didn't come out. So this morning my mother hands me a piece of mail from my insurance company notifying me that I canceled my health insurance. I'm like, I haven't touched anything. So I went to call my health insurance company, and the wait to speak to somebody was like an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. So then I call a different number just to see if I can kind of, maneuver my way through the system. And I ended up speaking to a sales rep. The sales rep was like, look, I've been getting calls about this all day long. Like, the only calls I've gotten today are about people's insurance getting canceled. So somebody either hacked into AmeriHealth system, or I just have the worst luck in the world, but somebody canceled my insurance. So I currently don't have any insurance. So if I were to be able to get vaccinated, I can't get vaccinated right now because I'm uninsured. I need a physical. I haven't had a physical in like 2 years. I need to get a physical. I need to go see my dentist. I don't have dental insurance. I don't have any of this insurance because somebody fucking canceled it. So I've had a absolute dog shit week on top of a dog shit year. But like you this morning, I'm excited to be here with you. I still love you.
Yeah, man, I love it too. It's that's so fucking terrible to hear that. We really need to
Right?
live in a country that just gives us fucking better healthcare.
Yeah.
It's so wild. And I remember you talking about it on the podcast a few weeks ago, how, well, maybe more than a month ago at this point, how you were on hold with different reps trying to set your insurance up. So
Yeah.
you for sure didn't cancel it. Like, it's on record.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, here, call them like, hey,
Right.
just
Yeah.
go to SoundCloud, listen, type in Tea Time with T-Cross and listen to episode 70.
Exactly.
I discussed signing up for this. I didn't cancel it. I promise you.
What's your email? I'll send you a link. You want Apple Podcast?
But only if you share it. That's another thing. So this year I had sort of a positive and a negative about this show specifically. Positive, I had the vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party on my podcast, and I thought that was like not necessarily my big break, but I'm like, this is gonna be cool. Like, this will get some listeners because I follow the guy on Facebook. He shares apparently not all, but he shares interviews that he does. So like, finish the interview, and then I sent the link to his campaign manager and like his social media manager, and they never shared it. So like,
That's lame.
The Libertarian Party vice presidential candidate who has like 100,000 followers on Facebook, I had him on my show and it got like 40 listens because he didn't fucking post it anywhere. And it really pisses me because it was a good episode. I re-listened to it yesterday.
Yeah.
It was a great episode.
Yeah, hell yeah. I remember being like, dude, this fucking guy, this motherfucker spitting. That's what I was thinking when I was listening to the episode. You know what? It's fucking karma. That's why they didn't get elected. Because he didn't share the podcast. But that's terrible. I feel like he probably does so many of them, but then like you said, he shares a bunch, and then you send to the campaign manager. So that's like, come on, Spike Cohen, you dropped the ball.
Yeah, I started like, as the time was going on, I'm like, what the fuck did I say that caused him to not post it? Like because I talked on child sex trafficking and the Epstein story, and like nobody has touched that. So I have a feeling that that's what did it. Like they're like, oh, we don't want that getting out to too many people. But then I feel like they also would have said like, hey, don't post that anywhere, please.
Right. That's true. No, and I remember he had something to say about it because I remember there was like, you guys spent a considerable amount of time talking about like Julian Assange and like all the parts they would give and things like that. And he was like, yeah, they're fucking implicated in whatever this thing, like that. Definitely that dude. That's,
I asked him how to solve the child sex trafficking. He goes, well, we need to get all the child rapists out of DC.
Yes, that's the fucking thing. Maybe that's like, it. He was like, oh, I'm about to be working with these people. Like,
yeah, as he's talking, he's probably texting the guy like, do not post this when he sends it to you.
That's so funny.
All right, so what else you got for 2020 before we get into the MMA year in review? What else you got?
Honestly, it was just a year of growth. Like we talked about, again, everything that was going on, it was always compounded. Like, just to we kind of glossed over it. Well, not really glossed over, but I didn't get to say, like, my heart goes out to you for losing your friend and your friends. That is so awful because losing anyone is hard. But losing anyone in a pandemic is monumentally harder, exponentially harder. Like, you can't go to the funeral. I mean, I don't. Maybe they have something set up, but my brother-in-law, which is how we met, he lost one of his best friends, and they couldn't do like we did a drive-by in the school parking lot and like held up signs. And I just remember being like, even though I didn't know this guy very well, he was always nice to me. And I just like, I would have loved to have been at a proper funeral. And, like I'm one of those people, and we're like, totally in sync about this. Like, listen to doctors, wear masks, like don't go to gatherings. Like, I social distance. I don't see like my friends. But dude, some things are like, we need to back open. We got to get a plan. Like,
yeah,
it's awful.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about it is like there's been no plan from anybody. Not even, you say what you want about Donald Trump and Joe Biden, but like everyone's like, oh, Trump botched this, he did whatever. But Joe Biden doesn't really have a plan either. He hasn't his plan is like, oh, we're just gonna mandate masks. If you don't wear masks, we're gonna arrest you. Like that's the plan. I go places, when I go to the store, like I'm willing to bet 99% of people in this country are wearing masks. We got to do something more than that. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. But and it's all like yeah, we got to stop the spread, but it's also like really sort of economically impactful. Like the thing that
Hmm.
like Mitch McConnell blocked the stimulus bill, like fuck Mitch McConnell. All the homies say Mitch McConnell. Like
Dude.
so shitty. And I was talking on Facebook today. My one of my friends that I went to school with, she works in healthcare, and I don't know what she does, and I also don't want to like put her name out there. But she was saying if someone goes in not wearing a mask, and that happened the other day, and they were like, "Sir, you have to fucking wear a mask or get outside." And he was like, "Oh, I'm not wearing it," and then they kicked him out, and he literally like hawked a loogie on the fucking window like a child,
Oh
because
my
that's what
God.
anti-maskers are. They're children. Um, but she was saying that if someone were to report them because that guy didn't wear a mask, they could get shut down for 2 weeks and they wouldn't be paid for that. So you're impacting people's jobs. Like
Yeah.
the people that don't wear masks are like just fucking selfish.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things about the pandemic that a lot of people don't want to talk about is, the economic impact that is happening from it. And, so many businesses have been just totally fucked. They're getting little to no help at all. Even when they were fully, like, at least here in New Jersey, the most places are open at, limited capacity, but that's a new thing. The first 5 or 6 months they were told you got to close, and a lot of them got no help. Like even
Yep.
we're having trouble getting connected to unemployment because everybody was unemployed, so they were getting overridden. And I get it. And then suicides are up like 600% this year compared to last year because people are losing their houses, they're losing their businesses, they're losing their lifelong dreams, and some people are losing their entire family. There was a family in Freehold um, where like an entire household full of like 7 or 8 people, like two parents, a grandma, an aunt, and like 3 or 4 kids, all died from COVID. Like families are being just ripped apart. It's just a lot of. We need a plan. And as far as businesses go, I don't know. I've been posting about it, but I'm sure you have seen me post about it. The Barstool Fund, Dave Portnoy,
Yeah, Dave Portnoy raising money. Yeah.
he's raised like $19 million, and I think from what I understand, I didn't really look at the on the website and the business model and whatnot. From what I understand, he's giving $100,000 to each business that wins. So $19 million divided by $100,000 each is like 190 businesses that he single-handedly saved by starting
Right.
this Barstool Fund.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? And just to tie it back to MMA, but we can still kind of spend some time on other stuff. When you said that, I was thinking about how today I saw an article that one of the journalists from Bloody Elbow posted. It might have been Kareem Zidane. He's the guy that usually does the like anti Kadyrov stuff and like out lets people know which fighters are like consorting with dictators and all kind of crazy shit. He's like the only one doing real reporting usually. But some people at Bloody Elbow did put together a list, compiled a list of people slash businesses that received COVID-19 relief. Top of the list, Joe Rogan, Brendan Schaub. I was like, these motherfuckers don't need relief. And then
Yeah,
a bunch of it was just like MMA gyms, like Uriah Faber's Ultimate Fitness, Henzo's in Middletown, like a bunch of MMA gyms.
yeah.
And they're usually, and they said the amount as well is usually like 100,000. So I'm wondering if it is that Barstool thing, but I don't think it is because I think I would have read that, but
Yeah.
I just sort of
There
skimmed
was
because it was wild.
I forget which company it was, but right at the beginning of the pandemic, it was a restaurant. It was a big restaurant. I want to say Ruth's Chris. I might be wrong, but some big restaurant chain received like $20 million in government funded help, and they gave it back. They said we don't need
Good.
this. Like yeah, obviously $20 million, that's cool, but we don't need this. Give it to small businesses, and the sentiment was good, but I really wish they would have done something like Dave Portnoy was doing. Like, hey, we got $20 million here. Like, who needs help? Instead of just giving it back to the
Right.
government because clearly they're not helping.
Fucking A, yeah. It's similar to what I saw Burger King do the other day. I think it was Burger King. that was like, we're good. So, and we know that you know where to find us. So we're going to use our social media to promote these small businesses, and they're each going to get some time on our platform or whatever, which is like totally free that they can do that.
Yeah.
And more people should. And I was just like, wow. I mean, obviously, like you said, the money would have been better,
Yeah.
but it's this like community mentality that's lacking. And I think it is like the pandemic came at such an inopportune time, because we're so divided as a country right now.
Hmm.
And normally things like that would sort of bring us together. Like, I don't know, I felt like on the first like maybe week of the pandemic, I felt a little bit sense of togetherness, because it was like, hey man, we're all going through it now. Like, no one is shittier than anyone else right now, at least. And then it kind of was separated as we went on, which was just
Yeah.
so fucking terrible.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse, and I hope we can recover as a country from that. But I want to use one more thing that's kind of pandemic related and MMA related that kind of will morph the conversation into talking about MMA. Did you see the interaction that happened with the civilian and Tito Ortiz last week or 2 weeks ago?
Oh my God. I generally stay away from most Tito Ortiz content because it infuriates me like so mad. Especially like, first of all, I'm from Southern California. Like, I was born in Orange County, not that far from Huntington Beach. Huntington was one of my favorite beaches. Like, it's one of the most clean ones. It's less touristy. There's so much to do. It's vibrant. And the fact that this fucking ape of a man who is so fucking stupid is on the city council. And I saw a thing that a statement made by one of the other city council members that was like, we've asked him several times to wear a mask, and he's vehement that he will not wear a mask. And we have elderly people on this council. Like, one person is 80, like they listed a couple names, and I was just like,
Yeah.
fucking hell, this guy is so fucking disrespectful. But I
And
see
that's
some of the things that people post, and I'm just like, oh yeah, Tito gonna Tito.
yeah, that same statement that you were talking about where the other city council member was like, wear a mask and he won't do it. And Tito, I don't know if I assume you didn't see the video, but uh, during a city council meeting, Tito Ortiz responded to that guy and said, as soon as we leave this city council building, you take your mask off because there's no cameras outside. And the guy was like, that's absolutely 100% unequivocally untrue. And then like, I don't know how city councils work. Like the head of the city council or whoever was running the meeting was like, Mr. Ortiz, please don't be throwing around accusations. And he was like, well, he came at me, so I had to throw something back at him. Like, so he basically admitted like, I'm just talking shit to this guy because he came at me. Like he basically said I made that up just to say something back at that guy. But the confrontation I'm talking about is he was in his car because he was doing some good for his community. He apparently does this often. He goes to like local food banks and shelters and hands out food to homeless kids and homeless people, and which is great. Um, but when you're dealing with children, and I know children are largely unaffected really by COVID, but as far as the death rate for children, but they go home to their parents and then talk to their grandparents and whatnot. So Tito going to these events, not wearing a mask around large groups of people that are mostly children, handing out food, that's great. But refusing to wear a mask around children that could then possibly die themselves or spread it themselves. Somebody approached him and was like, "What the fuck, man?" And then Tito like charged him and got in his face and was like, "Back up, bitch!" Like started yelling at him. And the guy was like, "You're a fucking politician. You're supposed to lead by example." And Tito's like, "I'm not a politician." And the guy was like, "You hold public office. You got elected. You are a politician. Just because you started politics doesn't mean you're not a politician." Like people saying that Donald Trump is not a politician. He wasn't while he was
It's
running.
literally his
Now
job
he is.
title.
Like his job title is politician. He's not
Yeah.
a career politician, but right
Yeah.
now you have a job in politics. You are by definition a politician. And they were like fucking jabbing at each
So
other back and
stupid.
forth. And Tito like got real aggressive with him and like got in his face. And I mean, I understand. I don't want people filming me and whatnot in public as well. So I get it. But like, one, you're a whether you want to admit it or not, he's a badass human being. He could fuck up most of the population. And you're a politician, you're a leader, and you're getting in people's faces. It was shocking, to say the least.
It's shameful. I just want to, like, there must be a video out there of Tito somewhere that's like, I'm not a fighter. I just get in the cage and beat people up. Not a fighter. Yeah. Like, you're a politician. Yeah. That's so stupid. I was actually at what was supposed to be his last fight when he fought Chael Sonnen at the Forum in Inglewood. Bellator 170. I remember I had like floor seats. I was like, this is fucking amazing. They put on a great show. We watched one of the worst fights I've ever seen ever, which was Holic Gracie versus Kato. I don't know how to pronounce the guy's last name. Just 2.5 rounds of like tentative, not really striking, feinting, and then the last 30 seconds something happens. Holic gets to mount, but he still loses. It was so dumb. But I remember Tito choking out Chael, and I just remember like, this fucking idiot gets to get his hand raised in his final fight, and he goes and has. I hate him so much.
He came out this week and said that he wants to fight Fedor because Fedor claims that his next fight he's gonna retire after his next fight, so they're trying to put together something big for Fedor, and Tito said that he wants to do it.
What a fucking idiot. They let him go over to, and I think he sort of cut ties with Bellator, as I understand. I don't know. Because he went to Combate Americas and fought Alberto Del Rio, Dos Caras Jr., which was like that fucking circus in and of itself.
Yeah.
And that was just sort of wild. Campbell McLaren actually follows me on Twitter, the guy that founded the UFC and is the promoter for Combate Americas. He's fucking awesome. And I feel like he is really smart when it comes to a lot of things. But Tito, I have no words, bro.
I'll tell you what, I would like to see it happen because I think Fedor would knock his skull into next week. But that might possibly make Tito dumber, if that's possible.
That honestly, yeah, I don't know if it's possible. It's so like dark. Now you got my brain thinking. Oh, the only thing that could happen that would make him dumber would be like if he maybe turns him into a vegetable. Like he just doesn't.
Yeah. My favorite Tito Ortiz moment was his back and forth with Chael on, I think it was a Bellator broadcast where he brought out the juice box.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And then when Chael was like, they don't make a size 52 stupid.
Chael is so good. Let me tell you. And I hate Chael Sonnen now, but back then I was like, he's the fucking man. I'll explain after this because I'm dumb and I'm fucking social justice warrior. But like, fucking that fucking broadcast, I think it was actually like on the news or ESPN. They tried to get on something because there was a guy in the middle moderating it that wasn't a Bellator guy. I remember that, and it was like, Tito's Rolls Royce just got repoed, just like making up these claims. And I remember Tito later posted a video like, it's in my driveway, you fucking idiot. But their press conference for fight week, when Tito was wearing that ugly green jacket, and he was like, you look like a maitre d' at Golden Corral. And then he made the dig at Jana Jameson when he was like, when Tito was like, all the opportunities Chael's ever got is from his mouth. And he was like, the only person that got paid for their mouth is Tito's wife, or Tito's ex-wife. And I remember, I don't know if you saw this, Jenna Jameson was asked about it on Twitter, and she was like, he wasn't lying. Like, that was what I did.
That's cool.
But to go back to why I hate Chael Sonnen, he's still one of the most brilliant minds in like MMA broadcasting, and he has done a lot for the sport. He's so influential even now. And I love the show with Ariel and them going back and forth, even though I haven't watched it in a while. But one day I was listening to Chael's podcast, and I would listen to You're Welcome like religiously. I loved it. I loved his takes, especially like when he had his friend Joel on, The Godfather, who was like so dumb, and he would just like throw marbles at him, like metaphorically. And Joel is in the car business, or he was, and he tells those stories like, I used to be in the car business, so like I'm always like, this is fucking great. One day he was talking about the Greg Hardy fight, and he's always like been pretty complimentary of Greg Hardy from the start, which I was like, ugh. But he he was talking about Greg Hardy versus Ben Sussely. That was the one in Boston where he used the inhaler. Okay.
Okay.
First of all, he kind of defended him for that, and I was just like, what? And that fight was so garbage, and he was so sloppy. And he was like, but look at him. He was fainting. The hip movement, he looked like Machida. I was like, oh my God, you just compared Greg Hardy to Lyoto Machida. You fucking sacrilege. I was in shock, and I turned off the podcast, and then I was just like, I need some time. And then the next week, the next episode or like the next week, he had on either Don Jr. or Eric Trump to promote their book. And I was like, okay, dude, I'm out. I'm fucking out.
I skipped over that episode. I didn't even want to listen to that.
Okay.
But fuck, I was gonna say something about. Oh, so you mentioned Joel. I'm actually friends with Joel on Facebook,
Nice.
and I tried to have him on my podcast, and because they mentioned about they talk often when he was on the show about the Team Quest days, and the Team Quest days happened at his car business. So like, he is like, I don't want to say like the godfather of MMA, but like Team Quest was what started MMA. That's where fucking Randy Couture came from. That's how it started growing. It started growing from that car business. So he's like a hero in the MMA world. He's like the godfather. So I wanted to have him on just to talk about that. And he was like, I'll do your podcast if you want, but I'm nobody important. And like, he didn't seem interested at all. So I was like, no, you are though. Like, and that's what I want to talk to you about. He's like, I'm really not. Like, I'm just some fucking guy. And he got like kind of like angry at me that I wanted to, like, I was giving him props for like his part in the history of MMA, and he's like, no. I'm like, all right, never mind then.
That's so wild.
Yeah, it was weird.
No, I agree with you. I think like when the book of MMA is written, like there will be a chapter on Team Quest, and that story of the car dealership, he had a hand in it. Like he's part of the history. But like, I remember him on the show, them arguing, and he was like, "You think you don't know MMA, brother? I watched this sport grow in my car dealership." Whatever. Like, oh my God.
So, good transition into MMA. So MMA 2020, go.
So I was actually thinking about like when we look back on MMA in 2020, we're gonna largely remember the stuff that happened after the pandemic, because there weren't a lot of fights before the pandemic. But then you start to think about like, oh, what was fight of the year? Well, I got to give it personally to like Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Zhang Weili. That was before the pandemic. And then I'm like, oh yeah, the year opened with Conor McGregor absolutely murking and wiping the floor with Donald Cerrone, and Roxanne Modafferi giving Macy Barber the business. I was so happy for that. So yeah, there was actually a lot of stuff that happened before. Yeah, I'm actually reminding of something I should have mentioned earlier of something that I was kind of salty when the pandemic started. Remember, I used to have that really long hair. Well, I cut it for a play that I was in that was supposed to open here in Navasink, and we got shut down because of everything going on like 3 weeks before we were supposed to open. I was like, oh fuck. Now I have to so I've been like rebelliously growing it out this whole time. But yeah, there was like, Izzy fought Romero, and I remember just being like the one person who was like, yeah, I enjoyed it, even though everyone was so mad, and rightly so. But that fight,
was that on the same card?
Yes, and that's why I think too, like Zhang Weili, Joanna Jędrzejczyk was the co-main.
Correct. Okay.
And then so you have this literally like fight of the century, best women's MMA fight of all time, best women's title fight of all time for sure, at least. And then you have like a stalemate where Yoel, statue of God Romero, is just standing there.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate Yoel Romero so much. But what was the last card? Oh, that's right. The last card before the pandemic was Kevin Lee versus Charles Oliveira in Brasilia. Yeah. And that was when shit was obviously really bad, but the UFC was like, no.
they still didn't have fans at that show, right? It was still pre-pandemic, but they didn't have fans, correct?
Correct. That was the first event with no fans. It was like I think maybe like that week, when everyone was already there, like cases were rising, stuff in Brazil was starting to close, and I think they were like, okay, because I remember there being like a day or so where we're like sort of waiting and like refreshing the news feed to see if they were even going to have it, because there was like a lot of reports that maybe it wouldn't, and then the Brazilian Commission finally agreed, like, okay, we'll have this event, but there will be no fans, and you can only have a certain amount of people in the room, and that was like. Honestly, I don't know. Other than like adding the testing protocol and isolating, I don't know if it was much different than the ones they did afterward. But they had that event, and then they were set to take place in London as well. I remember it was going to be headlined by Tyron Woodley versus Leon Edwards, and like Robert Whitaker, Jared Cannonier was supposed to be on that card, and they got fucking closed down. And I never saw it because shit was crazy by that point, and I was already in lockdown. But I remember they got together with Cage Warriors and they did like a co-promotion where literally like some guys from the UFC fought on the Cage Warriors card.
Oh, really?
Because they all, yeah, like Darren Stewart, I'm pretty sure, fought and like the headline that event. It was only like a couple of guys, but it was just like, they had some cancellations or whatever, and they were already in town, and it was just like, hey, let's sort of make lemons out of lemonade. But then after that, the UK was like, no, we're shutting this shit down. Like, no more events. Figure it out, until obviously Fight Island, and they had a plan.
Yeah. So how many weeks were there between UFC events, between the Charles Oliveira, Kevin Lee, and the first one post-pandemic was Ferguson Gaethje, correct?
Yes. So it was
I'm like
remembering
weeks,
the timeline. Right? I'm pretty sure the London event that got canceled was March 28th. May have been 21st. But the Brazilio fight was the week before that. So there was at least 1 or 2 weeks in March, and then all of April, and then the first, I think it was 6 weeks of no fights, because May 9th was the return of UFC 249, which another thing that kind of salty about. I had tickets when it was supposed to be in Brooklyn, when it was Tony Khabib. I had fucking tickets.
Me too.
So upset. And literally, like, I've gotten to a place now, I've seen tons of fights. Like, I've been to Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, like a couple times at the Forum in Inglewood, and I went to MSG, which is a dump. But
hey,
I went to...
Watch your mouth. You do not talk about the world's most famous arena like that. I have season tickets to the Rangers. I live in that building. Fuck you.
I know you do. I've seen you post all the time when you go to the Billy Joel concerts and shit. That I want to do, actually, because I grew up on Billy Joel. I really want to go for that, but I hate being in there. I don't fit in the seats. They don't open the right like concession stands for my diet, and it's just like so overrated. But anyway, I really had a good time. I watched 223 in Brooklyn in the Barclays Center when Khabib fought Al Iaquinta. Mm-hmm. That was madness, and I was really excited to see Khabib Tony at the Barclays again. I was just like, this is great. I love Brooklyn. It's amazing. Fucking shut it down.
Yeah, had tickets. Tony Khabib was supposed to fight 5 times. I had tickets to 2 of them. Fucking
Same, actually. Now I'm thinking about it, because it was 223 was supposed to be Tony and Khabib as well. And that was that whole scenario with supposed to be Khabib, and then Gaethje stepped in. That started like the sadness of, like, Tony Ferguson had a terrible 2020.
Yes, he did.
I mean, I've been a Tony fan for a long time, and I've been like, he's the guy that can give Khabib problems, like he's gonna whatever. And then now you have all these Khabib fans that are just like, you see what Gaethje did? That would have never been like. And then like what Charles Oliveira just did, it's like, fuck.
Yeah. I think Gaethje ruined the appeal of that fight, and I think Charles Oliveira buried it and killed it.
That was the nail in the coffin. Yeah. And I remember it was supposed to be when Gaethje fought Khabib. Was that September at some time? At that point, there was talks of Tony versus Dustin being on the card. Mm-hmm. And then Dustin wanted more money, and then like Tony was like on his side, like, yeah, they should pay him. Let's make this happen. Come on, UFC, pay up or whatever. And they had a stipulation at the time that was like, okay, Dustin has a win over Gaethje, so if Khabib for some reason doesn't make it to the cage, Dustin will slide in there and fight Gaethje. But if Gaethje falls out, Tony's going to be the one so we can get that fight that we never got to see. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm down for that. But then now it just looks so stupid with what
Yeah.
happened with Oliveira.
Yeah. Before I continue, can you like adjust the camera a little bit? The microphone keeps covering your eyeball. There we go.
But,
So what was your favorite event of the year?
oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one because I feel like with these things, recency bias plays a big factor in it. Like 256 that just happened with Figgy and Moreno. I fucking loved that whole event, like top to
Yeah.
bottom. Everything was great. But there were other events. Like I also had a really good time because obviously I'm a big Israel Adesanya fan. With the when he fought Paulo Costa, I mean that was just
That was
like
great. That was
amazing,
a great performance.
great performance.
So I wanna go through the MMA fighting their own awards and see if we agree or disagree, and then go from there. So male fighter of the year, who you got and why?
Yeah, so this is for me, and with fighter of the year, I try and at least narrow it down. But with the other ones like KO of the year, submission, I try and just do a list because there's so many great performances, and it like to say like one is better than the other is just so hard. And
Mhm.
but the fighter of the year is so tough this year. I feel like it's a two-horse race between Deiveson Figueiredo and Kevin Holland.
I agree.
And here's the thing: if you give it to Kevin Holland because he went 5-0 in 7 months, which is insane, I agree. But if you also think, and this is where I'm kind of leaning toward, if you think, oh yeah, historically it's always been a champion. Figueredo was the most active champion. Uh, he should get it. Jefferson Figueredo, Figgy. But then you think, like, okay, his last fight ended in a draw. He also missed weight for his first fight, so it's like it starts to fall apart a little. But on both sides, because Kevin Holland's not a champion. You know, the guys he
He
fought
really
weren't
only
as
fought
big a
one.
name at
He
the
only
time.
fought one ranked guy, correct? If Jacare is even ranked.
I think Jacare was ranked,
Yeah.
or was at the time.
Yeah.
Joaquin Buckley was a replacement. Darren Stewart might have been ranked actually because that was a great fight.
Mm.
And by the way, one of the things I love about Kevin Holland, like right afterward, there was some controversy, and he was like, "I'll run it back. Let's run it back." Like he
Yeah.
didn't, even though he got the win. Like I thought that was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I fucking love Kevin Holland. I need more Kevin Holland. And
Yeah.
like,
So for me, definitely, I would pick Kevin Holland. I understand the appeal of the title fights. You're training for 5 rounds as opposed to 3. But for the reasons that you listed, one of the fights ended up in a draw. One of them he missed weight. But on the other side of the coin, he did set a record by defending his title twice in 3 weeks, which was
yep,
crazy. I was shocked that he made weight again. I didn't think he was going to be able
right.
to, but he did. So it definitely comes down to those two. But I would definitely say Kevin Holland. Well, just 5 fights in 7 months, and then tried to step in and fight Khamzat on a week's notice.
Yeah,
And
dude.
from I think from what he said on Ariel's show that he used to fight at 170, but just got sick of cutting weight, so he just like walks around like 189, 190. So he like 185 is no problem. But he was trying to fight Khamzat, and I was like, boom, I'm fucking in. I want it. Um,
Yes.
but speaking of Khamzat, he pulled out of the Leon fight for COVID, and he's like walking around Chechnya without a mask
Yeah. Yeah. Just cavorting with the fucking
with the
with
media.
Ramazan Kadyrov and his boys.
Yeah, just with no mask. Like, but anyway, MMA Junkie gave the Fighter of the Year to Israel, which I thought was strange.
Even as a like self-proclaimed Izzy Stan, I'm like, MMA fighting.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, they're now with MMA Junkie, they do MMA as a whole, not just the UFC. So their nominees were Henry Cejudo, Justin Gaethje, Douglas Lima, and Jorge Masvidal. Odd list, but c'est la vie. Female Fighter of the Year, who you got?
This is another one that's really tough. I feel like for the last like 4 years, pretty much ever since she beat Misha, I've been like, it's Amanda Nunes. But Amanda Nunes didn't really fight this year. Did she fight one time? I think she fought Felicia Spencer.
Yeah.
And then Valentina, I think Valentina fought twice, but it was kind of like,
I think she fought at the beginning of the year, like pre-pandemic. I forget who, but then she just fought Jennifer Maya, and she lost a round, which was
yep,
odd.
yeah, it was very odd. Um, so I kind of want to give it to Zhang Weili just because she also had the fight of the year, but then again, it's like it was one. I probably would have wanted to maybe give it to Alimale McFarland, but she lost her title.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, Kayla Harrison. I love that chick.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm down for Kayla Harrison. Although sometimes I want her to like fight someone who will just give her a really hard time. Like
Yeah,
also because I'm a fan of like seeing people get tested, but
yeah,
uh the way she talks about things sometimes I'm like, oh, this bitch needs to taken down a peg.
yeah. I mean, she recently fought at 145, so and even if she didn't want to fight at 145, I think Cyborg would have no problem fighting at 55. She's enormous. That's a fight I would like to see.
I
But
100% agree.
so MMA Junkie gave it to Amanda Nunes, and their nominees were Chris Cyborg, Kayla Harrison, Valentina, and Zhang Weili. Breakthrough Fighter of the Year.
See, this is my thing. Like I said, for me, I'm tied on fighter of the year between Figgy and Kevin Holland. But Kevin Holland has to be breakout fighter of the year. Like, it has to be.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's also weird to like give him breakout fighter of the year and also fighter of the year.
Yeah.
Because those are very different things. I mean, you could also say Joaquin Buckley, even though he lost to Kevin Holland, that spinning jump kick knockout of Impa Kasangane that broke the internet, like the UFC's most views on their social page or whatever. I don't hate that either. I mean, I feel like if Khamzat had fought Leon at the end of the year like he was supposed to, Khamzat was a shoo-in for breakthrough fight of the year as well. Yeah. But even though he fought like nobodies, he still kind of made a name for himself.
Yeah. Yeah, his fourth UFC fight was scheduled to be a main event, which I think only two people have main evented quicker: Brock Lesnar and Conor McGregor.
Yeah,
I think
which is like Brock had a name already, so that kind of makes sense, and Conor like had a whole country behind him. Yeah, and that was why like they went to Dublin. That was his first main event.
Yeah. So I would have to say Khamzat just for that fact right there.
Yeah.
So MMA Junkie gave it to Jorge Masvidal, which was weird to me because he like broke through the scene last year, or was the Ben Askren fight this year?
No, that was 2019. It was UFC 239.
That's what I thought.
It was so funny.
Because he only fought once this year against Usman. That was the only fight.
Little 6-day notice, fucking stupidest fight I've ever seen, where Usman just like Waldenstall for 5 rounds.
Yeah, that pissed me off.
I was thinking about MMA, how cyclical it is and how wild it is when it comes to Masvidal, because Masvidal has always been like that guy, but he never really like broke through and like had the finishing instinct. But I was thinking about before 196 when Nate Diaz choked out Conor McGregor, a bunch of Nate Diaz fans were like, he's going to fucking choke you out. And all of a sudden the Conor fans were like, no, he's going to knock out your boy or whatever. And then Nate came in there and shut everybody up. Fast forward to 244 when Nate fought Jorge for the BMF title. All I heard was same thing, like Nate's going to kill your boy or whatever. And then he got fucking worked.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny when people break through and they do literally nothing different. Like Colby broke through because he created a character which evolved into, I think, his personality. I don't think he was always the guy he is now. And a lot of people think that what he's doing now is a character. I think it started as a character, but he got too ingrained in it, and now that's just who he is. But Masvidal, like you said, has always been that guy. Nate Diaz was always that guy. It took them 14, 15 years of fighting before people were like, hey, this guy's kind of cool. Like, where the fuck have you guys been? You know what I'm saying? So they picked Masvidal, and their nominees were Gilbert Burns, Volkanovski, Weili Zhang. Is it Weili Zhang or Zhang Weili?
So her first name is Weili. Her last name is Zhang, but they flip flop it in China. They do the surname first, so it's Zhang Weili.
Okay. And Peter Yan. That's an annoying thing with these things like we were talking about with Fighter of the Year. They always pick champions.
Yeah,
Like those champions. I mean, Masvidal is, whether you want to call him a champion or not, he's got a belt.
he's got a
But
belt.
but I mean, Gilbert Burns isn't a champion, so that's pretty cool. But Volkanovski fought once this year, or were both of his fights against Max this year?
No, the
I thought the
first fight
one was
against
last year.
Max was 246. That was December 2019.
Yeah. So he fought once this year. Zhang Weili fought once this year, and Peter Yan fought once this year. That's breakthrough fighter of the year. I don't know. I thought that was odd.
I actually
Um,
really like the Gilbert Burns one actually because if I think about it, he didn't really get on the radar until he knocked out Damian Maia. That was the Brasilia card, the last
yeah,
one before the pandemic.
yeah.
And then it was like, I'll fight Tyron Woodley. I'll fight, and then he fought. Was it just the Tyron Woodley fight that he had?
I thought he had 3 this year. I think
That's
I
what I
think he
thought
I
too.
think he had one just before the Maya fight, and then he took the Maya fight
That's right. That's
quick.
right.
I forget who the first fight was. But yeah, so that would be a good option as well. That I would go with. Fight of the year we kind of already discussed. Wiley Zhang and Joanna, or Zhang Wiley, whatever the fuck. Try not to be offensive here. It's
all
confusing.
good.
And Joanna Jędrzejczyk, my personal favorite fighter.
Did you
But-
score it for her?
I did, yeah. I had it 3-2, but I was not upset. It was very close. I have an admitted bias, so I was not upset by that one at all. But other great fights this year that I want to talk about, because that hands down for me number one. But Gaethje versus Ferguson. Now that was a one-sided beating, but that was fucking crazy for a number of reasons. One, nobody expected Gaethje to do that because that was Tony's first loss after the 12-fight winning streak. Nobody expected Gaethje to do that. I don't even think Gaethje expected him to do that. And there was no crowd, so you heard how fucking hard that guy hits. That was insane. That fight.
Abso-goddamn-lutely. And I was like, do you remember those memes that people used to do? It would be like, because Tony Ferguson's last loss before this was in like 2012.
Michael
And
Johnson,
so people,
right?
yeah, it was the Michael Johnson fight. So people would be like, oh, the last time Tony lost, I was still in school or whatever.
Yeah,
Last
I was
time
in
Tony
sixth
Johnson
grade.
lost, Obama was in office, like
Yeah.
all these like crazy things. And oh man, that was just so heartbreaking. But you know what's crazy? Like that was like you said, that was the first event with no fans, and it was in Jacksonville. For some reason, and I don't like know why it was. It still had that big fight feel,
Mhm.
and even though there was no crowd, I felt that buzz. Like you can just feel the energy, and it's like
Yeah.
you almost like hear the like. Like I heard that, I felt it. I was just like I was transported for that fight, and what was I gonna say about it? Oh, I want to get your opinion on this. Fans or no fans? What do you think? Like even once it gets back to normal, fuck fans, in my opinion. Like I love the no crowd fights, especially with Kevin Holland, dude. Like hearing him being like on bottom against Jacare, being like, I had a dream about this. Like yo.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle on it because watching from home, I prefer no fans. For those reasons you listed. You could hear the guys talk to each other. You hear the punches, you can hear the corners, not just during the fight, but then when they show the corner work, you can clearly hear what they're saying.
Yes.
Like the corner work of Trevor Whitman with Justin Gaethje in that Tony Ferguson fight, when Gaethje is like going crazy and he's like, "Hey, focus. Last time you got this
You got knocked
this
out.
you got knocked out. So
Yep.
stay focused." And I was like, "Holy shit. I love hearing Trevor Whitman in the corner." But I like going to the events. So here's my thought. If I'm watching from home, no fans. If I'm allowed to go, fans are okay.
I'm kind of with you on that, but I mean, like I said, I've kind of ran my
Ric Flair
course,
woos gotta stop. The Ric Flair woos gotta stop.
dude, and that's my biggest thing. Like, it's annoying from home when you can hear it, and you're just like, oh, but in the arena it echoes. Like
Yeah.
I've been a few rows away from these cucks, and I'm just like, I want to strangle you
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the.
it never ends. And then you get the idiots that are just drunk, and you're like, just stand up, stand up. Like, dude, if you don't like groundwork, go watch Muay Thai. Like, fuck off.
For sure, absolutely. And I feel like sometimes, like sometimes you get someone who's cool. Like I remember when I was at Atlantic City, that was when Kevin Lee fought Barboza.
We've been at like all the same events, but we don't go together.
Oh,
Like,
you were at that fight too?
I was, yeah.
It's so crazy. Yeah. So I remember there was like a seating confusion because we're on the risers near the cage, and the person that was seating everyone that was just like, yeah, sit wherever. And I sat on the edge because I usually do that. Like I have a leg problem. I'm 6'3", 300 pounds. I need an end seat. And then someone comes and is like, no, that's actually my seat. And we almost got into it. And then I just was like, okay, I'm not gonna have this conversation. And then they ended up being really, really cool. And then we were just talking about fights the whole time. And I was next to some people that knew Aljo, and like he was fighting Brett Johns. That was like his comeback fight after the skid or after the Moraes knockout or whatever. But then when I was at 223, just a few weeks prior, I was sat next to this fucking annoying guy from Boston that like literally every time, like on the cut men, they have the back of their shirt says Boston Strong. Every time he would notice, I'd be like, oh, is that guy from Boston? I was like, bro, shut the fuck up. But a lot of people were like, you had Joe Loza on that card, you had Kyle Bochniak when he fought Zabit. And I think there was a couple other guys from Joe Lawson's gym, but he was just like, yeah, the Massachusetts guys. I was just like,
Yeah.
get me out of this nightmare. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Yeah. I went to, I forget which card it was, but Mickey Gall was fighting Randy Brown. I think it was the night.
217.
Oh, was it that night?
And MSG, yeah. He got
Yeah, I forget
fucking
which.
mollywopped.
Yeah. But I know Mickey. We fought on the same on the same card as amateurs. So I've known Mickey for a while. So before that fight, he was selling T-shirts. So yeah, I'll buy a T-shirt and I'm going. I'll support my friend. So I'm just wearing the T-shirt, and the three kids in front of me, like right before that fight, were like, or right after the fight before, were yelling like, "Oh, Mickey's up next! Fuck Mickey Gall!" And they're screaming like, "Fuck Mickey!" And then I stand up because I'm gonna go to the bathroom and get a drink before Mickey's fight starts. And the kid turns around and he was like, "Oh, who do you think's gonna win the title fight?" And I'm wearing a shirt that has Mickey Gall, like big letters, and Mickey's face. And I was just like, "Oh, I'm hoping Joanna wins or whatever." And then he like his eyes open. I see he noticed something. I was like, "What's the problem?" He goes, "Do you know Mickey?" I go, "Yeah, I do." He goes, "I'm so sorry." I go, "You're a fan of who you're a fan of. I don't give a fuck.
Right.
Like, you're not yelling fuck Tom Crossan. Like, as long as you're not yelling me, I don't give a fuck." But he was like, "Fuck Mickey Gall," and I'm like, "Yeah, I hope Joanna wins." Like,
Dude, speaking of being at events, the same events, I remember the first time that I knew we were at the same event when we went to Frank's Muay Thai fight in the city at the Hulu Theater next
dude,
to
hammered.
and the guy I was just gonna say you were on another plane, like you were so drunk. And the guy was like doing a promo for the WWE that was going to be there, like, and next week we have a title fight headline by the, and you were like, bring on Frank, we don't give a shit about the wrestling.
Yeah, I was tanked that night. I remember. Well, I don't remember the night that well, but I remember being told about the night.
I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, there
That's
was
so funny.
like it was so funny because I remember after that fight because he won that fight. So everybody posts pictures and videos of the fight when they're announcing his name and they're raising his hand. So like his whole Facebook feed was just videos of people tagging him, and in every video, no matter what time of the fight it was, you heard me yelling because like
Yes.
everybody that was there for Frank was all in the same general area. And I was just fucking screaming like Frank's gonna kick your ass and then eat your ass. Like I was just screaming nonsense for the whole fight. And I cannot believe nobody told me to shut the fuck up.
Dude, I was here for it, and like I had only met you once, and obviously you were sober. I was at the gym, and I was just like, okay, like this is who he is. I love it. Like keep it more. I think you got me more into it. I was just like, yeah.
Yeah, it was fucking crazy. So before we went off on that tangent there, we were talking about good fights. Poirier versus Hooker was this year as well. That was madness. And I saw a video the other day of them like after the fight, like in each other's face, like kind of talking shit to each other. Like, was there animosity before that fight that I just don't remember happening?
That's interesting. I thought they were like cordial afterwards. I thought they were respectful. Like I remember zero animosity.
Yeah, there
Like
was
maybe
a
there was a little bit of
video.
tension.
Yeah, there was a video posted the other day. I think it was on the UFC's account where the fight was over, and then Poirier walked over to Dan's corner and was like, "Yeah, Dan, how about that?" And then Dan stood up and they went forehead to forehead, and he was like, "How about that, Dan?" And then like somebody separated them. I'm like, "What the fuck? What happened?" I don't remember seeing that the night. I don't remember seeing any
Wow.
interviews before or after. I was like, "What the fuck happened there?"
Probably just the adrenaline. Dude, I can remember though,
Yeah.
and I don't know if this was it. Like some fighters, when they get called out, if it's in a somewhat non-respectful way, they take it super personally. Because I remember when Hooker called out Poirier, I think it was when he beat Ally Quinta, and it was like, Dustin Poirier, you're next, or whatever. It was like so intense.
Hmm.
Speaking of which, or maybe it was no, it was the Felder fight because that's what I wanted to talk about. Shout out to Dan Hooker for being in two Fight of the Year candidates, in my opinion.
That was
The
another fun
Felder fight,
fight.
even
Yeah.
though it was a robbery, um, dude. And another Felder fight, the RDA fight was awesome. I don't know if I would call that a Fight of the Year candidate, but 5 round war, super tough. The story of it is amazing that he took it
Yeah.
on like 5 days notice.
Yeah, and he made weight, and on the same card, like three other people that had full camps missed weight.
Ugh,
And he was like, dude, I started this week at 177 pounds. I weighed in at 155 this week. Like,
zero excuse. And he was the first on the scale.
yeah, that too. Dude, he's a fucking I'm so happy that because before that he had claimed to be retired.
Yeah, I
And
think it was because he got sort of the shit under the stick of that decision. He was just like, it's gonna take a lot for me to get out of bed for another fight camp again. I'm
yeah,
just gonna focus on broadcasting.
which he's fucking excellent at.
Oh, he's so good.
And it's not just him. I like all the former fighters on the in the broadcast booth. DC, Cruz, Felder, Michael Chiesa is phenomenal. He doesn't commentate the fights, but he analyzes them. He's a fucking brilliant mind, Michael Chiesa. Wow.
Hell yeah. He commented some fights in I think it's called Venator FC. It's this Italian promotion.
Mm.
Uh I want to find a copy of that because I'd heard a little clip and he sounded really good. You're right. He's a great mind. Even though he corrected DC and DC got super mad at him.
Oh, I remember that.
So funny.
So knockout of the year.
This is another one like there were so many. Any knockout that Chaos Williams had, those 30-second ones where he just fucking obliterated those dudes. How about the cold? I'll tell you line of the year, like trash talk line of the year, even though it's not really trash talk. Chaos Williams saying they keep sleeping on me and the doctors keep waking them up. Oh my god.
Hell yeah.
But another one, I would say the Joaquin Buckley Impa Kasangane one, obviously like knockout of the century. Like there has to be there's no other candidates. But if you can call, even though it's probably a TKO, if you can count Izzy's knockout of Paulo Costa,
Excellent.
that's another one.
Yeah. For me, I would have to say Kevin Holland again against Jacare.
Jacare from the
Off his
bottom.
back.
Oh my god. Yes.
And not only off his back, but he caught Jacare in a triangle. It wasn't like it didn't seem close because it's against Jacare, but he challenged Jacare on the ground, and I didn't know that he apparently had gotten his black belt earlier this year. Kevin Holland, I didn't know that because he's likes to stand up and strike and he knocks people out, but then like he's on the ground and he puts Jacare in a triangle and then knocks him out off his back. I'm like, what? It was fucking crazy.
Amazing. And do you know who he got his black belt from?
Travis Lutter.
Yeah.
Right?
The reason I know that is because, well, he mentioned it on the broadcast, and then one of my friends that I'm in a group chat with was like, he got his BJJ black belt from the Michael Jordan of BJJ, and I was like, "Shut the fuck up! What are you talking about?" Apparently, one at one point on the broadcast when Travis Lutter was fighting, obviously those are the old days, and Goldie was commentating Mike Goldberg, and he called him the Michael Jordan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Dude,
It's one of the most wild thing I've ever heard.
dude, when that guy left the UFC, it was the happiest day of my life.
Wow.
That guy was
Hate him?
not Travis Lutter, Goldie.
Oh,
Dude, was the worst. Like, dude, he had been commentating the sport for 20 years and he still just doesn't understand what's happening. I'm like, how can you watch something for 20 years and still be clueless?
he would have some wild takes and sometimes just go off the rails a little bit. Like, well, that's there, Joe. And the thing that people like to give him shade for is during the Ronda Rousey fight when Ronda was just getting worked by Holly Holm, and he was like, well, Joe, it takes a lot of energy to be a rock star.
Yeah, one time he not one time, he said it many times, a leg kick to the body. I've heard him say that numerous times. A leg kick to the body. It's like, come on, man.
Oh, stop. That is wild.
And then he would often try to commentate on like jiu-jitsu things that were happening, like, oh, he just needs to, get the arm on the other side, right? And Joe's like, nope, that's right where the arm needs to be, and here's the tap. Like, fucking Goldie, you are a piece of shit. You and a piece of shit are virtually identical. Like, the pauses in that guy's like,
you gotta make that meme, dude. You gotta make that meme. Just put that with him there, virtually identical.
And now he's at Bellator, and Big John commentates over there. He should go back to reffing because he is awful at commentating. He really is.
100%. And it's sad and it's unfortunate. Do you know why he's not reffing anymore?
No.
So he talked about one. I don't know if this is the only reason. I think it's also he's getting up in age and things like that, and he wants something more stable. But he talked about literally he was teaching somebody. I don't know if this was in a ref class or if he was teaching them in a jiu-jitsu class, because obviously he practices. He's a black belt. Mm-hmm. He was showing somebody a Darce choke, and he was saying how you just get your hips in, you sit into it, and the guy wasn't getting it. So he was like, okay, put me in the choke and I'll walk you through it. And so he had the guy put him in the choke, and he was in the choke for like 90 seconds, obviously not fully because he would have passed out, but they were in the position for, according to his words, this is like an interview with Ariel when it first announced that he was going to be commentating with Bellator. He was saying that he had nerve damage from the guy, like couldn't get it right. And then finally, when he did lock it in and he pulled down, he had been pulling for so long that he had some sort of nerve damage in his neck that he had to have a surgery. Yeah. And like, if you look at him on, like whenever he's interviewing people in the cage, I feel like he has not the best posture, whereas I feel like he always did. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of this, but I 100% know that that's a true story that he told, where he was in some sort of a choke, for like a considerable amount of time, and it caused some nerve damage.
Wow. I'd never heard that story before.
So like, yeah, like when you said like he should go back to reffing, I agree, but apparently he can't really do that.
Oh, wow. Well, in that case, just go retire on a beach somewhere.
or go on the desk, because I've heard some clips. I enjoy what I've heard of his podcast with Josh Thompson, but for the most part, some of the things he says are just so wild. Like him saying like MVP and Anderson Silva had the same level of competition or something like that.
Yeah, he said that recently. It's insane. It's insane.
But it's literally not true. Like you can match up, even if you go back to like Anderson Silva's Pride career, about like he fought like Carlos Newton, and in Cage Rage he fought Lee Murray. Like these are icons. These are legends.
Yeah, 100%. Submission of the year. I cannot even think of one off the top of my head.
Here are a couple. So they're mostly recent. So Jimmy Flick had that flying triangle recently.
Yes.
Which was great. But I also like when it comes to things like that, I think name value adds a little bit to it. Like,
Mhm.
not only did I not really know him, I didn't really know his opponent, so it's kind of like, but it was just an awesome scramble, awesome move. Any of the leg locks that happened, like Mackenzie Dern getting I think it was a heel hook or something. That was the first leg lock submission of any kind from a woman in the UFC. That was history making, so that probably should get it. But also Ariane Lipski absolutely wrenching that girl's leg back. I think it was Luana Carolina, something like that. She fought her on Fight Island. I don't know if you remember. She just like absolutely pulled the leg. It wasn't
Yeah,
even like super technical. She just got him
yeah,
mount, spun around, and pulled it back.
yeah.
People were
After you
making
mentioned that.
memes because like the way she was holding it looked like she could have been on a jet ski. And so they put her on
Oh
a jet
yeah,
ski.
dude, that knee was bad. That was
So
really bad.
bad.
I can't. Speaking of stuff getting cranked, I can't believe Tony Ferguson didn't tap that armbar.
Bro, we talk about his decline. I was going to mention this earlier. Did you see the video of him breaking it down?
No,
Oh my God. You
you gotta
have to
send
go on
that.
yeah, you have to go on his Instagram. I don't know if it was just on his story and then I saw people like sharing it to Twitter, but I could have sworn like he maybe posted it to his feed. Find this video.
Yeah, I'll
He
check it out.
does like a review where he's like watching the fight from his computer and like recording on his phone or something. And in the moment with the armbar, when he isn't that, because like that's where he mentally broke.
Oh, that I did hear that he said that he mentally broke him in the first round. I didn't know that it happened during the armbar.
It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, that dude's
It's
wacky.
like, I forget who said it, where it became a meme in the MMA community for a while, where it was like someone was on the losing end of something. It might have been actually Tony Ferguson. Now that I think about it, it might have been the Gaethje fight where it was like, it was at that moment that or no, it was I remember the Nate Diaz fight with Jorge Masvidal. I don't know, but it
Oh
was
yeah,
like, it was at that moment that I realized he didn't want to be in the fight, but they were the one who lost it, and I
yeah,
was like, come on.
yeah. I've heard that before. Was one of was Bryce Mitchell's twister this year, or was that the end of last year?
No, I remember specifically because he was my sub of the year or like one of them for my last year's 2019 awards. But it was like December of 2019, so it feels like it could have been recent, but it was
Okay,
definitely last year.
okay. Um, I don't like these ones. Coach of the year.
That's tough. So I think, hmm, well, sometimes when you're properly breaking it down and when you're thinking about this, to just pick one, record matters, like their success. I think Eugene Behrman has continued to have a great year.
I agree.
Obviously, Izzy going 2-0, Dan Hooker going 1-1, I guess, Volkanovski 1-0. Brad Riddell, I think, maybe also fought this year. That's another one of his students. Brad Riddell's phenomenal. Um, but I also just because of our conversation earlier, like I just want to give it to Trevor Whitman because I just love anything that guy says. Like you talk about hearing his corner work, like with no fans. I love when they put him on the broadcast.
Me
They
too.
need to do that more, especially because, dude, what the reason they originally brought him on was to talk about the corner work and to kind of comment on what the corners were saying or just like things that they didn't pick up on that he did, and they don't really do that anymore. And especially since they're so stingy and they don't show us the corner, like they're just putting ads in there and commercials. Like we need Trevor Whitman on the
Yeah,
broadcast more.
yeah, I agree with you. It comes down to those two though, Eugene or Trevor. I think just because Eugene has more fighters, because Trevor kind of dialed back the number of fighters that he works with. Um, but so it definitely comes down to those two. It's hard to pick one, but who do you think this is the last category? This is one that I made myself. Who do you think had the best performance in a specific fight?
Good question. So I would have probably, and obviously biased, I would have to pick Israel Adesanya. Israel Mabulajiti Mitao Odunyo Uwalafemi Uwalabi Adesanya versus Paulo Bohashinia Costa. That was just a complete shutout. But I also want to give a shout to my other favorite fighter, Roxanne, beating the brakes off of Macy Barber. That's got to be another performance of the year. I
Mhm.
mean, Gilbert Burns against Tyron Woodley is another one too, where like
That was
Tyron basically did nothing.
yeah, he shut him out.
RDA against Paul Felder, short notice is something else, but
For me, my top two, and I hate to give them because they both were against Tony Ferguson.
Gaethje and Oliveira.
Gaethje and Oliveira, because I think partially because I didn't expect either of them to do that. Obviously Gaethje is a fucking animal. I thought Gaethje had the best chance and the best style to beat Khabib. That's what I thought before he fought
Right.
Khabib. Um, but still, Tony Ferguson, 12 wins in a row is still Tony fucking Ferguson. And to see him do what he did to Tony Ferguson on it was originally short notice and then it got pushed back because of the pandemic, so it wasn't as short notice as originally intended, but still relatively short notice, and it was shocking. And then I thought, even though Tony took the beating of his fucking life, I thought he was going to come back with a chip on his shoulder. I know Oliveira's won 7 in a row before that fight, but the highest competition that he fought up to that point was Kevin Lee. Not that Kevin Lee sucks, but Kevin Lee is not Justin Gaethje, the guys that Tony fights. And I'm like, Tony's going to come back with a chip on his shoulder. First loss in 8 years. Like, he's coming back with a vengeance. And Oliveira, similarly to what Izzy did, pitched an absolute shutout.
Hell yeah. And I want to like thinking about this year for Tony Ferguson, like we said, just like it's been a kind of just a descent because in my opinion, like it wasn't completely one-sided against Gaethje. It was way one-sided toward the end, but I think initially, like, I don't know if maybe like the first 2 rounds were 1-1. I don't know.
He did
Because I'm
land that
terrible
big
at scoring.
uppercut that dropped him. That dropped
Yeah.
Gaethje. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there he had moments of success where it was very interesting for a while, and his toughness was a big story of that fight. But the Oliveira one, like you could make a case for Oliveira being another breakout fighter of the year as well. Like think about Oliveira's last loss. I'm pretty sure was Paul Felder, and obviously that makes Paul Felder look really good.
Yeah.
But Oliveira doing what he did to Kevin Lee, just dismantling Kevin Lee, and then dismantling Tony Ferguson, he's really come like so far.
Yeah, and while we're on the subject of 155, where do we go from here? It's so stacked. Who knows if Khabib is actually retired, which I think he is because he's pretty openly said I will only come back for GSP. I don't think that's going to happen. So now we got Chandler fighting Hooker was just announced. We got Conor versus Dustin, and now we got Gaethje still sitting on the fence. We got Oliveira sitting on the fence. RDA's back at 155. We got Islam Makhachev, who's the dark horse in that division. What do we do with the title? What's next?
So it's tough, and I sort of assumed like once they officially like came to terms with the fact that Khabib was retired, like the man lost his father and made a promise to his mother, like
Yeah,
just stop. I don't know, like let him be retired. But and DC was even saying that like the day after or the week after that he was like on the phone with them and he was like, how do we get Islam to be champion now? Like he was like thinking of like as a team mindset as a coach or whatever. I don't know, man. Like I assumed that they were going to make the Conor versus Poirier fight for the vacant title, not because they necessarily deserve it, but Poirier is now is he on a 2-fight win streak or is it just the Hooker fight? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But they're kind of the two highest ranked lightweights that are fighting like the soonest. I like that's usually what they do.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but it just feels like that's the fight. Like it's good for business. They obviously want Conor as a champion, even though it's terrible for the division. It's good for business. And so what do I think they should do? I think they should probably. I would love to see like a fucking like tournament, not a real tournament, not a one-night tournament. Obviously that's ideal, but with COVID, it gets really hard as well. But like do like Conor versus Poirier, Hooker versus Chandler. That's on the same card. Make the winners fight for the vacant title. Like do what they did. They wanted to do this in middleweight years ago when Bisping was the champion and he was injured. They were like, okay, let's have Weidman and Yoel fight, and then Luke Rockhold and Jacare fight. Then the winners fight each other, and then the winner of that fights for the title. That's what they tried to do. They should do something like that where they have maybe throw another person in there so that there's like well, I don't know if you have enough ranked lightweights to really make that interesting, but at least those two, like at least do the winner of Conor and Poirier fights the winner of Hooker Chandler, and that's the title fight.
Yeah, I totally agree. That they should do some sort of tournament thing. I think the reason they won't is because Bellator does like Prix style stuff, and they look down on Bellator.
That's true.
Whether that's good or not, they don't want to steal some sort of business model from them, and that's like Bellator's biggest appeal is they do those Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And
PFL now too.
Yeah, and I think with how stacked that division is, with the title, assuming it's going to be vacated, you have enough really high level lightweights that you can make an 8-man Grand Prix. You got Conor, Poirier, you got Chandler versus Hooker. That's one side of the bracket. Other side of the bracket, you do like a Gaethje and
Oliveira,
and then like Makhachev versus Tony Ferguson,
or Makhachev versus RDA. RDA that was already supposed to be a fight, and yeah, dude, I love that idea because I was just thinking after I said that my whole spiel, I was like, fuck, I left out Oliveira. Like I think regardless of what happens, Oliveira's next fight should be for the title. He's on a massive win streak. He just beat Tony Ferguson, who was like the guy for the long time. Yeah. Let that man fight for the title. If not, Gaethje. Like that's the only other fight that makes sense for him.
Yeah, and you still have Kevin Lee in that division. Kevin Lee is, whether he's had a skid or whatnot, when he faces, the real high level competition, he kind of has skids. But that fucking guy's good, and he's like 28 years old. Yeah. That dude's got a fucking shelf life. That kid is a fucking animal. That division is so stacked. And one thing I'm glad that you mentioned it is that, it's bad for the division but good for business that Conor would be champion. Conor has had 2 fights at lightweight.
Yeah.
2 in 4 years. His first fight was November of 2016 against Eddie Alvarez, which he won. One of the best performances in UFC history. That was absolute shutout, unreal. But then he, goes and takes a break, gets arrested a couple times, fights Floyd, comes back, fights Khabib. So he's been in the division 4 years. He's had 2 fights, and he's 1-1. And they're like, he's next for a title. I'm like,
I know, it's so dumb.
Yeah, I mean, he's the champion that never lost his belt, and he's the biggest star in the sport. But like, look at that division.
Yeah,
it's like take the rankings out of it. Star power. There's plenty of star power in that division. Obviously not Conor level, but Poirier's a big fucking star. He's huge. He's got millions of followers on Instagram. Not that really means anything, but it kind of does in this day and age. He's a big fucking star. Charles Oliveira is like a fucking Beatles guy in Brazil. He's huge in Brazil. Islam Makhachev has all the same fans that Khabib has, the same appeal, the same skill set.
True.
Like they have so much star power in that division where they don't necessarily need Conor in that division, and it's kind of bullshit because he hasn't done the body of work that everybody else has had. And before when we mentioned the Grand Prix and the top level fighters, we didn't mention Paul Felder.
Yeah, dude. Oh, see, exactly. There's something. How about this? Paul Felder versus Kevin Lee. That's a really good fight.
I like it.
Speaking of Conor hasn't earned anything, what I was thinking as well? He talked about wanting to not cut weight anymore, and he was going to fight at 170, but he was fighting 55ers. It's like, come on, bro. You ain't shit. Like,
yeah.
I'm so glad that they finally put their foot down and like, if you're wanting a title eliminator, it has to be a 155. You have to fight in the division that you would be fighting for the title for. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Otherwise, just go fight for one. You don't want to cut weight, be the lightweight champion weighing 170.
Yeah, exactly. And then go get absolutely mollywopped by Timofey Nastyukhin like Eddie Alvarez did.
Jesus Christ, that was something. So one thing I want to touch on before we go, we're at like an hour and a half here. I I know you've been very outspoken against him, as have I, but did you see that video that Mike Perry posted the other day?
Dude. First of all, yeah, like you said, for basically the majority of this year, I've been like, fuck Mike Perry, like, cut the guy, he's done. But after seeing like these most recent, I mean, my tune hasn't really changed. Like, it's still like not a lot of sympathy for the guy, but he clearly needs help. Like, he's
Yeah.
unraveling. Him kicking that glass door and just put like, are you kidding me? The fact that he also wanted to put it on Instagram for some reason as well. Like, he's just on the
Yeah.
floor, his leg is bleeding out, and he's just like, well, whatever he said.
Yeah.
So dumb.
And then, fighting that old guy, he uses the N-word. It's just like he's definitely an entertaining fighter, but somebody in the organization needs to sit him down before he goes War Machine. Like he is on that path.
100%. And
And
there's so many parallels between him and War Machine.
yeah, and I think, obviously I don't fucking like the guy, but I think cutting him from the UFC will just spiral him out of control. I think the UFC needs to step in, and because they said something to him after the bar fight with the old guy, and Mike Perry even said himself, like, I have a problem with alcohol, I need to fix that. So he knows himself that he needs help, but a lot of people know they do, and if they don't get it, something's gonna snap at some point. And if somebody doesn't step in and say, "Hey, listen, bitch, like, you got a fucking kid on the way, your pregnant girlfriend corners your fights, like, you're a lunatic, like, you're kicking glass windows, you're punching old guys, like, we got to get you into some sort of facility and fix this before somebody other than yourself gets hurt."
You're absolutely right. And the unfortunate thing is that this is like the perfect storm for Mike Perry because, like you said, the UFC said something, but they're not really big on doing too much intervention because they toe the line between employees and independent contractors, and they do it when it's convenient for them. Like the way the contracts are set up, they're more similar to employees. Like, they don't have a lot of rights, they can't fight anywhere else. They have USADA, Reebok deal, which is now the Venom deal. Once that kicks in, like, they don't have a lot of say in a lot of things. They have no union, no seat at the table. But when it comes to like absolutely like doing that, like stepping in, like you said, they were like, well, they're independent contractors. You know what I mean? Like, it's when it's convenient for them. And so Mike Perry needs to, like, his team needs to do something. He's with First Round Management, the Kawa brothers, Malky Kawa, Abe Kawa, whatever. Those are the same people that manage Greg Hardy. Like, asking them to be accountable is like fucking asking Dana White to not post videos of himself on a yacht. Ugh. Hate Dana White so much. Lower the price of the pay-per-view, you fuck.
Yeah.
You
And did
human
you see what he said
thumb.
the other day about, like, oh, I got something special for you guys? Because somebody commented, like,
Oh yeah, dude.
I can't wait to illegally stream this. And he was like, oh, I can't wait to catch all you motherfuckers this year. I got something special planned. It makes me not want to go to CS.com.
It's taken down. Did you know that?
Is it really?
I don't know if they made a new website. Yeah, I saw someone post about it, and I was like, no. And then I went to that website you mentioned,
Fuck.
and it doesn't exist. And this is what, like, so people have been posting. I don't know if this is something on Instagram. Like, sometimes I feel like you miss out a lot from being on Twitter, but sometimes you're like safe from certain things. Someone posted, or people have been posting that they got a DM from the UFC's account, like, hey, we want to send you something as a fan, as a thank you for being a fan. Like, people post random, and it was like from the verified UFC account, like a random DM from the UFC Twitter account. We'll send you some stuff. And then I saw a tweet today where someone was like, if you've posted a Crack Streams link in the last few weeks, or probably ever, don't fucking answer that DM. And I was like,
Oh,
that's
shit.
it, dude. They probably search tweets of anyone who posted a crack streams. They'd be like, hey, we want to send you a thank you as a fan. And like, get your address. And he's probably going to go to like poopsenders.com and send everyone a fucking bag of camel shit or something.
Oh, well, I never post the link or send it to anybody. So that's hopefully I'm safe because, but yeah, what did he make it? 65 now? 70?
Yeah, I would say it was when I first started watching the UFC, it was 60.
49.99.
49, oh, for the, yeah, even further.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then it's been 60 for a while. Over the past year, maybe two, it's been 65. Now it's 70, 69.99, which is just absolutely like in a pandemic. Like this motherfucker made a video about like dunking on all these journalists that were right to criticize him at the beginning of the pandemic and just ask questions about what's going on. And he was just like, "Oh, these people doubted me. Look how I did. Look how we were on top." And this fucking piece of shit is like posting a video from the yacht. It was like 2020 kicked my ass, but I'm coming back for 2021. I'm like, 2020 didn't kick your ass, you
Yeah.
fucking idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like a lot of him. And I've heard a lot of other CEOs from other big companies talking about how tough the year was for them. And like, we lost this many $1 million this year. I was like, no, no, no. You didn't lose that much. You just made that much less. Like if you were
Right.
scheduled, like if you were on pace to make 200 million this year, but this year you only made 50 million, you didn't lose 150 million.
You just gained 50
You
million.
still made 50, but you were just less than your projection. So you didn't
Right.
lose anything. You just didn't make as much as you were expecting.
But Tom, they have to pay for the planes and the mistresses and the islands.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's switch to a positive note. Um, who I want to talk who you think is going to be the champion of each weight class at the end of 2021. Let's start
Ooh.
with the women. Uh, Strawweight.
I'm gonna throw a curveball. Let's start even before strawweight because I heard recently that Dana White wants to add the atomweight division, the women's 105. Yeah, I heard that he actually finally like looked that up. That's
Okay.
legit. And if that happens, I'm gonna say Michelle Watterson
I
would
was
be the champion of that
the same
division.
thing. Do
Um,
you think she can make? You think she can make 105 again, or is
yeah,
she's kept
she
like tried to bulk up to stay at 115?
she probably couldn't like short notice fight, but I absolutely believe that she could do everything. She's bulked up a little bit, but she hasn't really. She's still a smaller
Yeah,
strawweight.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna say I believe that the women's strawweight champ would be Rose Namajunas.
You think she's gonna beat Jean?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Rose. It's sad that they actually have the same manager, but Rose, in my opinion, well, here's the thing: if Rose's mental toughness is in check, then she's unstoppable. Like when she knocked out Joanna, I was there for both fights.
Me too.
Uh, I think you both were for the previous conversation. Um, like she's unstoppable. But like the first round and a half, really, of the Jessica fight, the Jessica Andrade fight, that was like her best performance, like virtuoso, like Rose in peak form, just absolutely styling on Andrade, and then she just got caught in that slam. The second fight, and I think here's why I kind of like look at it through rose-colored glasses because I feel like it's a different scenario. COVID was going on. She lost family members to COVID. She only had like a month to train, and that was a tough fight for her. So I think that if she has a proper camp and she gets everything in check and figures out how to train, and Trevor Whitman can get her to a victory again, and she can beat Zhang Wei Li. But it'll be tough.
I'm gonna say Joanna.
I knew you were going to say that.
I think whoever wins the Wiley versus Rose fight, Joanna's probably gonna have fight somebody else, and it's one of those things in that division where the very very top are so far ahead of the rest of the division. It's like it's just gonna be
Yeah,
those three, kind of like
yeah.
how it was with Jones and DC up at 205 at one point. It's gonna be back and forth between those three. So Rose and Wiley are gonna fight. Joanna's gonna go fight somebody else, and then she's gonna rematch one of those two, and she's gonna get her revenge. The Boogie Woman is
The
back.
Boogie Woman.
All right, 125 female.
It's very easy to say Valentina, and it's probably gonna happen, but I'm gonna just be controversial and I'm gonna say Jessica Andrade. Now that I was thinking about her fight, did that nasty body shot that she put Kaylin Chukagian away with? She looked
Mhm.
really good, and I
Yeah.
don't think that she can necessarily be Valentina, but I like to live in a world where there aren't perfect specimens like Valentina that are like probably a cyborg and is like also a spy for the KGB.
Yeah. I was gonna say exact like basically word for word you were gonna say, like probably Valentina, but if anybody, it'd be Andrade.
Yeah. It's another one that I would want to throw, even though this will never happen. I'm a massive fan of Meatball Molly,
Hmm.
and when she came into the UFC, she was the Cage Warriors champ, and like historically, the Cage Warriors champs have done well, like Bisping,
Is she from Europe?
Connor. Yeah, she's from Liverpool.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay,
Yeah, Meatball Molly. She follows me actually. Hi Molly, if you're listening. She's
nice.
uh, but when she first got signed to the UFC, Valentina was obviously still the champ, and she was like, "We come from like a similar place, like somewhere real dirty, like Poland. I feel like Liverpool's like right up there. I want to fucking have a great fight with her." I was just like, "Hell
Hey
yeah,
there,
dude,
Phil.
let's get it." So if Molly can somehow earn her way, like she lost her last fight to Tyler Santos, who just absolutely dismantled Jillian Robertson. So it's not looking good as far as her title picture, like her trajectory. But if she somehow gets a title fight, I'm gonna say Meatball Molly, baby.
All right, I like it. Uh, can anyone beat Amanda Nunes at 35 or 45?
Ooh, no, absolutely not. However, I think 2021 could be the year that she retires.
I agree.
So
Um,
in that, what's funny? If you asked me before the Holly Holm versus Irene Aldana fight, I would have said, "Oh yeah, Irene has got a great chance," and then Holly Holm just absolutely fucking styled on her. That's
yeah,
another division where I feel like the top are so far ahead of everyone else that like it honestly could be Holly again if she's still fighting. Though if
yeah,
Amanda retires, Holly should probably retire.
yeah. And then 45. There's really only three fighters in the UFC at
If she retires, they're
145.
closing that division.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be wild
Really,
if we lived in a world where Megan Anderson was the champ?
or they could somehow get Kayla Harrison. I think they could, make a division around her similarly to what they tried to do with Cyborg, and then have continued with Amanda. Because
True
I mean,
champ.
how many true 145ers are there in the UFC at in the women's division? Two? Because Amanda's a 35er that just doesn't cut weight to be the champion up there. Megan
Right.
Anderson and Felicia Spencer. Who else is in that division?
Well, I don't know who they still have on contract. That's the thing. Because Megan's last fight was Norma Dumont, who just fought in the UFC recently.
Okay.
But she fought at 135, I believe.
Oh,
If I'm
really?
remembering that correctly. Like I was just like, why? But I think she has had other fights at 45. It's not just like she went for that fight.
Hmm.
Um, Another fight was Farah Zarin, who Felicia and Megan both beat. Um, so those are the only other two that's coming to mind.
Yeah.
Um, they really don't. There are 45ers in the world to be found. And to be fair, um, what's her name? Sarah, I almost said Sarah McMahon, but that's not it. The other Canadian Sarah, um, she fought in the UFC and then got cut, and then she went to PFL and fought in their 55
Oh,
tournament because
Kaufman.
yes, Sarah Kaufman, yes. I feel like she used to fight at 135. She fought in the 155 tournament. Obviously, was undersized, but if they offered her an opportunity to get back in the UFC by fighting at 145, she might take it.
Yeah. All right, men's. You want to start big or small?
Uh, Might as well start small.
All right,
At the same time.
125.
Uh, I got Brandon Moreno. I thought he won that fight, and or at least I agreed with the draw. I thought it was a crazy back and forth fight, and I think if he has more time, I think he's got his number. He landed more takedowns on Figueiredo. I think Moreno's gonna win the rematch.
Yeah, that was and that's one of those divisions that I was looking at the rankings before that fight, and like half the top 10 are people I've never heard of.
Yeah,
I mean, the
yeah,
only
because a lot
reason
of
I've
them.
heard of Alex Perez is because he just fought for the title. Before that fight, I had no fucking idea who he was. I know who Brandon Moreno was because I watched, The Ultimate Fighter, and I loved him on that 16 seed, making it to I think he made it to the finals on the show, right?
No, well, what happened is they put the 16 seed against number one, so we had to fight Alexandre Pantoja, and they put on an amazing fight, but Pantoja won, so
Oh,
he didn't win
Pantoja
any
won?
fights. Yeah, Pantoja won.
Oh,
However,
shit.
Moreno, because of his amazing fighting style and his personality, he was one of the first guys that got signed off that season, and
Okay.
he had made his debut in the UFC before the finale even aired. So as far as I'm
Okay.
concerned, like he won that season in terms of like honorable mention. Like he was
Yeah.
choking out Louis Smoke on live television, but before the
Yeah.
finale happened.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going Moreno. Now 35 is a tough one. That's another division where like the top is really far ahead of the rest, but the top is like the top 5 or 6 in that division are all real good. So who you got at the end of 2021?
This is tough. So when Aljamain Sterling was going to fight Corey Sandhagen, I was like, this is going to be a crazy fight. And then Aljo absolutely schooled him and choked him out in the first round. But then Corey Sandhagen came back and had that amazing spinning heel kick knockout against Marlon Moraes. And so here's what I'll say. If Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan fight, I think Aljo will win, and in that case, he would. I think he'll retain the belt and become the champion. However, if Petr Yan wins, I think Sandhagen beats Petr Yan. I think they could become that triangle of like like rock paper scissors, like X beats Y, Y beats Z, Z beats X, kind of like it going around robin.
Yeah. You got to remember TJ Dillashaw's coming back.
Oh fuck, I hate him so much.
As much
Yeah,
as
you're right.
he's fucking good.
He is fucking. You're absolutely right. Yes.
And it's been verbally agreed upon. TJ Dillashaw versus Jose Aldo. They're just trying
I saw
to
that report.
out the kinks. I think TJ walks through Aldo, to be completely honest.
Hell yeah.
So I'm gonna say TJ Dillashaw will be the champion again by the end of the year.
I hate to agree with you, but yeah. Unfortunately.
I can't believe that's been 2 years already. His suspension is almost up.
I know, and I think it's crazy because 2020 probably felt like it went so fast. Like they were one of the first fights where I think they were for the first fight card of 2019 and the first one of the ESPN deal.
Yeah.
With on ESPN Plus. I remember that being such a novel thing. What'd you say?
Were you at that fight, him versus Cejudo in Brooklyn?
No, were you?
I was, yeah. I was at that
Okay,
one.
no, I wasn't. I remember we thought about it, but I was just like, I want to watch it at home. I want to like do the ESPN Plus thing and figure it out. Plus, I didn't want to give like I don't know if Greg Hardy got like a piece of the live gate. I fucking hate that guy.
Yeah, I was thinking about going or not, and then my boy Carl Roberson on short notice fought Glover on that night, so I was like, he's fighting, I might as well go. So me and my dad went and watched Carl get choked out by Glover.
Dude, speaking of Carl Roberson getting choked out, I was so sad when he got choked out by Marvin Vettori because Marvin Vettori fucking annoys the shit out of me, and I love Carl Roberson.
Me too. So we just do 35, 45.
Ooh. I'm going to say Brian Ortega. I personally thought Max won the rematch, but it's clear like, as far as the scorecards, he's 0-2 against Volkanovski. He's not likely going to get another title fight. Okay, maybe it could be Max. So they've pretty much said that Ortega versus Volkanovski is next. And I think that's a great fight given Ortega's last performance. And I think Ortega has a good chance of beating Volkanovski because if he can't win him in the stand-up, he can choke him the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
But then Max will get his rematch with Brian and do the same shit. And then maybe Max can walk away with the belt again.
All right, this one's gonna bother you.
Can't wait.
I'm going Zabit.
Oh, I fucking hate you. You know what? He's so not on my radar anymore that when you said that, I was just like, who could he possibly say that's going to bother me? Like, oh.
Yeah, I'm going to go Zabit. I don't know who they're going to put him up against because it's pretty fucking clear that whatever the fuck his name is drawn a blank, that fight's not going to happen.
Yair?
Yeah. That one's not going to happen. So I think Max is going to beat Calvin. And then Zabit is probably going to fight like a Korean Zombie or something like that next. And then if he beats Korean Zombie, he'll probably be next in line, depending on how the timing goes with the title fight between Volkanovski. So I think Volkanovski is going to fight Ortega, and then there's only going to be one other 45 title fight this year because it seems like there's really only 2 or 3 title fights in each division a year. So I think Zabit's going to win his next fight, and then they're going to fight. Zabit's going to fight for the title like September, October-ish, and then that's my prediction for 145.
All right. Well, I can't wait to listen back in a year when you're wrong and Zabit is fucking penniless on the streets.
55.
Ooh, that's a tough one. That honestly, I have no idea. I want to just like put their names on a dartboard and just throw a dart and just figure like, I don't know. It would make me so happy, and it's not going to happen at all. But it would make me happy if it was Paul Felder. Like we were talking about earlier, how like sentimental it was. Like I grew up doing theater. Obviously, we talked about I have the theater podcast. Paul Felder did as well. He has a degree in theater. Whenever I found that out, I just became like, he's not my favorite. Obviously, I have other favorites, but he's in my top like 5, if not top 10. Like I fucking love that guy. So if he was if he became a champion, dude, I would just be over the moon. Just like.
Yeah,
so much a fan.
Yeah, I would definitely say that that's possible. Enough can happen in that fucking crazy division, where he wins a fight, maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe takes a short notice fight because somebody pulls out. A lot of people in that division get hurt. It seems like before
Very
title
true.
fights, he may end up fighting Oliveira for a title at some point next year, whether it's on short notice. He already beat Oliveira, so it's definitely possible.
Hell yeah!
But I'm gonna say Oliveira. I think he can't be denied anymore. I think even if they try to deny him at the beginning of the year, he's going to be fighting for a title by the end of the year, and I think he is the best guy in that division. I think he beats all the other guys that we mentioned.
Yeah, except Paul Felder.
Yeah, true that.
But yeah, no, you're right. He's legit. He's the real deal.
170.
Who's the 170 right now? Usman. I actually think Gilbert Burns has a pretty good shot of beating Usman, but if that doesn't happen, I don't see anyone else beating him. So it's a toss up. So probably Usman, but I really fucking hate Usman.
I do want to see Usman fight Colby again though, because that fight was awesome.
It was, but it was just like a little sloppy. It wasn't the most technical striking match. It was just like. It was just a complete stand-up fight because they didn't want to wrestle and there was so much animosity.
Yeah.
It did give me hype. Yeah, I mean, honestly though, like the build-up, it would just be so nasty. Like it already was nasty, and like I'm personally super intrigued for whatever Colby does next because now that Trump's out of office, like what's he gonna do? That was his whole gimmick.
Now, yeah.
I was actually talking about this with a friend. Like he should just become a full-on like left-wing Biden supporter. Like that's his thing. Like no matter who's in office, he's like a true patriot. Like this is our president. We have to support him.
Yeah.
But obviously that's not going to happen because, like you said, he marked out for his own gimmick.
Yeah, I think he's going to fight Masvidal next. I think he mauls Masvidal pretty handily. I think Usman beats Burns. I think it's going to be a good fight, and then Usman and Colby are going to fight again. And I'm not a huge fan of either of them. I prefer Usman for obvious reasons. But man, it was a sloppy fight, but it was a barn burner. My favorite thing that Usman said to Colby was way after their fight, after Colby fought Woodley and Usman was on the desk and Colby's yelling like, "I'm coming for you, fake newsman." And Usman was just like, "I broke your face. I broke your..." Colby was just going and going and going. And Usman's only response was, "I broke your face." And I'm like, I love it.
So many memes came from that. Like the face that Usman made where he was like, or whatever that face was.
Yeah. Real good. So I think I know your answer for the next 3.
Is he?
185.
Yeah, it's not even close. Like I'm not even gonna give anyone else any mention. Although I am super interested in a Kevin Holland versus Izzy fight, whenever they can make that happen. But I still got Izzy in that one.
The fight I want to
Um,
see most in that weight class is Izzy versus Darren Till. Just
I love that.
stylistically.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? Honestly, it could happen because I remember after the Whitaker fight, Izzy had tweeted, "I want to fight Darren Till. His striking is just so beautiful."
Yeah.
Like he literally said that, and I was like, "Damn, respect."
Yeah, and they're both hilarious. I think I think the buildup would be funny. Like you see Darren Till will send DMs to Izzy like videos and I'm like, I'm fucking coming for you. Like
We had
they're
a
playing.
challenge on Twitter going around at one point where we would try and recreate that video, and I just remember like that was the best thing. I think it happened like right before lockdown or right at the beginning of lockdown, where it was just like, "I'm coming for you. I'm fucking coming for you. I'm fucking coming for you."
He's so fun. He's so good. But yeah, I say Izzy 205.
Now that's tough because um, I don't want your listeners to think I'm crazy. And I do think he beats Jan, but I think Izzy getting the belt at 205 is going to draw John Jones back. And I don't want to sound like a lunatic and say that John Jones doesn't win in a fist fight because if there's one thing John Jones can do, it's win in a fist fight. I still think that fight is super intriguing and that he doesn't finish Izzy. Although if he uses wrestling, maybe he could finish him either by like ground and pound or submission. But dude, I just like don't want to say those things in the universe like John Jones winning. It just sounds so awful to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I wrote the other day that I think or before I got banned on Facebook, I posted that I think Jones murks Izzy. I don't think it's a close fight. I don't think it's even competitive because of the wrestling. And I know, Izzy has good takedown defense, but Jones took down Daniel Cormier, an Olympic level wrestler, with relative ease. I know Izzy's long and he can keep distance, but I I don't think Izzy can stop Jones from taking him down, and I don't think Jones. I mean, maybe he's stupid enough to try and strike with him because he tries to beat people at their own game, which is why he wrestled with Daniel Cormier. So I
right.
think he could try and strike with him, realize that he can't, and then just, switch gears in the middle of a fight. But I think Jones runs through him pretty handily. But I agree with you. I think he beats Jan. I don't think Jones is going to come back down. I think Izzy's going to have to go to him. But I think Glover Teixeira is going to be the 205 champ at the end of the year. And I fucking hope so. I love that guy. He's
I
so
love
nice.
him too, and it always happens whenever there's someone like in competition with Izzy where I look like a complete asshole because there's a bunch of like hardcore fans on MMA Twitter who hate Izzy that are like, Glover needs his shot. He's 41 years old. He's never gonna get another shot. This is bullshit. As if MMA has ever had any sort of like hierarchy with like
Yeah.
rankings and other shit like that. Like, I don't know. It's always entertainment first.
Yeah.
So whatever. But yeah, dude, I love Glover Teixeira. He's so nice. Like I talked about having Fernanda on my podcast. She told a story on her show recently where like she was covering an event that Glover was fighting at, and he saw that she was like nervous, and he like went over to her, and this was like right before his fight where he was like, "Hey, are you okay?" and like wanted to talk to her. Like, dude, you get like through the roof points for shit like that with me.
Yeah.
Like I love Glover Teixeira. And then
Yeah.
like, when he was beating the absolute dog shit out of Anthony Smith and
He's
apologizing.
Just part of the job, man. So,
Sorry.
yeah. So one thing I forgot to say, so I posted that I think Jones runs through Izzy, and one of my buddies comments, if you think Jones can beat Izzy, you're on fucking crack. That's like saying the Jets will win the Super Bowl next year. I'm like
How is the
saying that John
winningest
Jones.
champion in UFC history winning a fist fight against another champion who hasn't had that many defenses? How is that on crack? Was it
Yeah,
Bobby Adams?
No.
You always put that guy on blast. That's why I said that.
I was like, I'm thinking to myself, saying that a guy who's never lost a fist fight will win a fist fight is like saying I'm on crack. like what? Like where's your like?
No.
I hope the Jets win the Super Bowl next year, but I think John Jones is much more likely to beat Israel Adesanya in a fight than the Jets are to win the Super Bowl. Like I'm like, if you're genuinely making that comparison, you're the one smoking crack, motherfucker.
For sure. I that's wild to me. I can't even believe that someone would say that. I probably saw that post and like moved on. I was like, I don't want that smoke today. But
can't
like
engage in that.
I know exactly. Like hearing that makes me go. "Argh." I don't think it'll be a murking, but you bring a very good point about the wrestling because if he uses it, then it won't be competitive. But otherwise, it'll probably be maybe similar to the Santos fight, where it's just like a chess match in striking.
Yeah, yeah. One thing with not just Izzy but fighters in general, when they talk about he's never fought anybody with good wrestling pedigree, and people will mention Yoel Romero. How many takedowns did Yoel Romero attempt?
0. Yeah,
0.
Not even attempt.
Yeah,
well, he may have attempted one, but I don't think so because they didn't get that close. The whole thing was fought from like kickboxing range.
Yeah. So like you can say, he fought Yoel Romero, but like he didn't have to defend any takedowns. So like, yeah, he fought him, but I don't know. I just can't see, because Izzy's not a big 85er. It's not like he can very easily. He's gonna have to weigh in with rocks in his pockets to weigh over 200 pounds. Like he's not a big guy. So, Thiago Santos going from 185 to 205. That's a big move. Same thing with Anthony Smith. Them going up. Those are big 85ers. So, Izzy going up to 205 to fight Jones, or even if he decides he wants to go to heavyweight to fight Jones, I just think he's going to be severely, severely undersized against the greatest of all time. And look, it's a fight I want to see. I just don't think it goes well for Izzy. Heavyweight, who will be the champion?
So this is a crazy scenario because you got Dana says that Stipe versus Ngannou 2 is the next fight for the title, and that John Jones is going to fight the winner. I personally am more intrigued to see John Jones versus Stipe. So I'm kind of mad about that, but Francis does deserve his rematch. However, DC made a very good point about their rematch. How when Stipe fought Ngannou, he took his best shots and then walked him down, took him down. It was an absolute shutout, amazing fight. That first round, I was like having heart palpitations. I was like thinking Stipe was going to get knocked out. I was like, holy shit, Ngannou's like crazy. But then he beat him, and then he made it look easy, like Ngannou didn't even belong in there. However, because of that war where he took Ngannou's best shots, he then fought DC like 6 months later and got knocked out easily. And then so whenever he has like a crazy war and then fights soon after, he's much more likely to get knocked out. And so I think even though that Stipe won against DC pretty handily, they still traded a lot of punches. It was a rough fight for both guys. I think how soon the Ngannou fight is made is going to be a factor on whether or not Ngannou wins, and then that'll determine. So I almost want to say Ngannou just off of like principle, or not really principle, but like just kind of trying to predict that. But if it's not Ngannou, then it's probably going to be John Jones.
Yeah. 100% agree with everything you said there. So I know you said you didn't want to do more than 2 hours, and we are over 2 hours right now.
Okay.
So just real quick, what are your goals for 2021 now that 2020 is over? What do you expect to get out of this year, and what are your goals?
Honestly, well, I want to lose weight. Like I am way too fat. 300 pounds.
Are you really?
Yeah. I know like when you post the video, like people will see like I don't have like too much fat on my face, but I'm almost 6'4", so I carry a lot of weight. I'm 300 pounds. I want to slim down. I also want to somehow figure out a way to like juggle the two podcasts. It's gonna be rough for me, but I'm missing MMA. I want to bring my MMA show back, but I'm also really loving doing the theater podcast, and I want to keep that going. And I also have this really amazing idea for an OnlyFans page that I'm like determined to get that off the fucking ground too. Why don't I just talk about that real quick, actually, because that is
Please
going to be
do.
fucking great. So this actually stemmed from two things. So when I was like actually this goes back 10 years ago when I was living with my friend Andrew, we were in an apartment with like four other girls. And then we got joined by one of their boyfriends at the time, whose name is Leo, who's now like my best friend. That's like the guy who's might be my other co-host. But um, Andrew found this review. Well, there was like a scene by scene breakdown of a gay porno, and the fucking name of it was I'll never forget this. The name of it was "Cum Sloppy Buttholes," and we have since tried to find it. Exactly. We have since tried to find it. I can't find it, but it was like a scene by scene dramatic breakdown of like someone who like for some reason maybe they're I don't know, like who wanted to read about it. It was like, and then Gary takes his meaty cock or whatever, and we're just like we found this review and we started dying laughing, and we're like, wouldn't it be great if you read this in like a British dialect, like, and then he went deeper or whatever. Fast forward to 4 years ago, I'm at a wedding in PA, and there's nothing to do late at night. And we're like, let's go to Walmart and just fuck around. And I found their book section, and I picked up this erotica, and I just started reading like, and then she takes his cock in her hands or whatever. And I started reading in this voice, and then I randomly remembered that moment a few like maybe a couple months ago, and I was just like, oh my god. I need to make this an OnlyFans page. And I finally found a book for it. It's called The Italian's Final Redemption. And I'm going to make it happen somehow. I don't know. I'm going to put myself on camera with a smoking jacket and a pipe. And I'm going to be reading this fucking disgusting, nasty novel. There's one point where he sees her for the first time, and it says her nipples were berry-like or something like that, which is just so weird.
And you're
Like,
gonna
why
read it in an English dialect, right?
Yeah.
Are you gonna be naked and blur out the old twig and giggleberries?
I thought about that. I think what I want to do is like I want to have it like an element of like classiness while I'm saying like talking about smut. So I'm gonna do the smoking jacket, but I'm gonna have some chest hair popping out. We're gonna make it snazzy.
Gonna make it sexy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna keep it real sexy.
You have my subscription for sure. I will definitely. What are you gonna charge?
I'm gonna make it probably like $2.99, $3.99, something like that. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet.
And when are you planning on starting that? And what will you call the OnlyFans page so people can
Yes,
find?
I remember I was talking about that. It's gonna be called Breeders Theater. Breeders Theater.
OnlyFans.com/Breeders Theater. Pay attention.
Coming soon to a phone near you.
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
All right. Anything else you want to get off your chest? Anything else you want to plug? Breaking the fourth wall as well.
Yeah. If you're listening and you are into theater at all, Broadway, musicals, anything like that, I do a podcast called Breaking the Fourth Wall. It's mostly on Spotify. Half the episodes are exclusively on Spotify because they contain music from the show, and it's like a licensing thing. So they all have to be on Spotify. Otherwise, I try and do like alternate weeks where I'll do a straight play, and so that has no music and gets put everywhere. I just released an episode on Shining City by Connor McPherson, which is a play where I did an Irish dialect for a scene. That was really fun. And I am going to bring back the MMA podcast. I don't know yet what it's going to be called, so I can't really plug it. However, it's going to be on the same feed as my former podcast / kind of still doing it, Fighting with Myself. And other than that, just be kind to each other.
Yes, be kind to each other. Listen to his podcast, listen to mine. And for all you shit posters out there's a lot of you on Facebook. You shit post memes all day. Shit post a friend's podcast, for Christ's sake. Give me some fucking, get some steam going and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I got 42 subscribers. I want to get 50 by the end of January. Help your brother out.
Normalize sharing your friend's podcast and buy some fucking T-Cross merch on T Public. Or
Buy some merch.
is it on T Public?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, brother. Appreciate you. Later. Bow.
We out.